Hey, welcome back to Two Super Guys Trade Stocks. I'm Dylan.
And I'm Vinny. And today we're going to talk about the big news topic of the week, particularly amongst the kind of younger folks with student loans outstanding, was the student loan forgiveness. We're going to talk about what Michael Burry had to say about that. And we're going to talk a little bit about what the plan is and like what the long-term impacts of that could be.
Ooh, all right. If you like this kind of entertaining stock market content where it's two super guys trying to figure everything out, give us a like and subscribe, and let's get started. Two Super Guys Trade Stocks.
All right. This video might get some people outside of our normal audience because it's kind of talking about student loan forgiveness. For those of you who are not aware, that the guy on the left side of the screen here is Michael Burry. He's the guy played by Christian Bale in the 2008 movie The Big Short about the housing market crash. Kind of got famous for that. He tweets a lot about finance and kind of politics and that sort of stuff. So we're going to talk about a little bit of his tweets. Particularly, this one is
Oh
probably
boy.
the most encapsulating, I guess, of his feelings here. Talking about how this student loan forgiveness basically, in addition to the Inflation Reduction Act, basically amounts to $2 trillion in stimulus for the economy. That's what this fiscal put refers to. So fiscal put, the whole idea here is that it's like a tailwind for certain industries, which is going to be interesting. I'd be curious to see if in his next quarterly filing, if he has some like for-profit kind of educational companies now in his portfolio because of this. Because it's designed, this program is big enough and kind of revolutionary enough that it could create some tailwind for some of these for-profit entities, which is something he would be interested in.
Yeah,
But
he definitely gets creative. Do you,
this last line is definitely interesting. It's good for the economy as sugar for babies. And if you are not aware, he is actually a medical doctor, MD. So I guess it's a little bit interesting when he talks about sugar for babies. But that's the whole idea. What was your question?
the thing that I hate about this is that if I refinanced my loans because 9% interest sucks. So now I'm screwed. I just don't get it. Sweet.
Yes.
Yay for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if like I said, if you're new to this channel, you may not know. Dylan and I are both, gone to graduate school and had a, financed that whole thing. So we have a lot of friends that have had student loan debts, and a lot of them are, refinanced or, kind of very different strategies. So we kind of get like a wide array of perspective by our personal conversations about people with student loan debt, with sometimes significant amounts of it. But basically, this is the highlights from his press release. This is the final extension of the student loan repayment pause until the end of December this year. Well, never know when it'll actually truly be final, but
Yeah,
maybe.
we'll
Okay.
see.
The plan is to forgive up to $10,000 per borrower or $20,000 if you receive the Pell Grant. Pell Grant is a federal program which is designed for low to middle income kind of like college students to help them go to college. So this will be help them target a little bit. If you qualify for a Pell Grant, you're probably someone that's at least a low to middle class upbringing, therefore more likely to need a little bit of help, which makes sense, right? If you're truly your goal with this whole program was to provide some relief for those that need it most, right?
Right. I mean, that's fair. That works.
Yeah, there is an income limit of $125,000 per individual or $250,000 for a married couple. Um, so now we talk about this. The next real, it's like the third line item down, and it's one that like most people probably aren't paying attention to, but I think could actually have the most profound long-term economic impact. So there's this new income-driven repayment program. Now I must clarify this with the fact that there is not a lot of details out about this yet. All we know is kind of like what's basically here on this slide. It takes the payment for your student loan payment down to 5% of discretionary income as opposed to 10%, which is what it previously was. It
Okay.
also changes how your discretionary income is calculated, right? So it increases the non-discretionary income, the part you basically need to survive at a bare minimum, to 225% of the federal poverty level, which is roughly equivalent to about $15 an hour full-time job. So under this plan, if you went to college and got a full-time job making 15 bucks an hour, you would basically not pay your student loans. Be
Okay.
$0 monthly payment. Yeah.
Don't get me started
And
on the getting $15 an hour after a bachelor's degree. We'll leave that alone. It's a different video.
wow. Yeah, exactly. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. Um, and then after 10 years of payments, non-payments, whatever, 10 years in this program, if your loan balance is under $20,000, which is not a lot of money, they would be forgiven at that point. The other thing that's kind of like, it's thrown in there, but like I don't think people appreciate how powerful this is it covers the borrower's unpaid monthly interest. Like, this is a fancy term, but you ever heard of negative amortization?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Not well,
So,
not a long time.
yeah, well, it's a scary thing. Like, people don't realize how scary a concept this is. This is like when you're making the monthly minimum payment on your credit card balance. It tells you that number where it's like, oh, you have a $4,000 credit balance right now, and if you make only minimum payments, it takes you 6 years, and it's going to cost you $18,000 to pay it off. That's negative amortization in effect. Your interest is accruing at a rate that's higher than what your monthly payment is in the beginning.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's where you
that's
get in
utterly
big trouble.
terrifying. It's a downward spiral that's extremely hard to get out of.
Exactly. But this would eliminate that for the people that qualify. And it, as of now, the way it states is it's only for undergraduate degrees or loans. There's some real questions they haven't answered yet, whether or not any of this income-driven repayment program will be eligible for people with graduate loans, and also like those who have both kind of undergraduate and graduate loans. How would their loan be split in terms of whether or not they qualify for this? Those are things we have to figure out for the next couple months.
Yeah, hopefully they release more guidelines on that.
Yeah, they will. So this is from the Wharton School. Wharton School of Business is considered one of the preeminent business schools in the country. This is their analysis after this plan has been released in terms of what the costs are likely to be, and what the potential kind of impacts could be. So just the part that's been announced, and we kind of understand at this point, you're talking about this $519 billion for the debt cancellation, right?
Okay.
If you lump in the loan forbearance and this income-driven repayment under static assumptions, meaning whoever has it right now will continue with it, and it doesn't drive market forces where tuitions go up or more people start taking income-driven repayment programs, which has been the case over recent years, then you're talking about $70 billion for that one. But if you look at these non-static changes where you're seeing more people taking advantage of this, you could actually be looking at $1 trillion total out of this plan.
So way more than they're originally kind of going for. Yeah.
Yes. And all of this is done at the stroke of a pen. So the kind of caveat there is that whether or not this stands up to legal challenges is questionable. There's some people out there can make a case for and people make a case against. But the problem with things being done at the stroke of a pen is that immediately the successor in office could undo all this with the stroke of a pen.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, with the $2 trillion plan, and then a part of it that only makes up $70 billion, but could be another $1 trillion, I would like some more guidelines, maybe.
Yes, we will get more data over the next, probably a couple months or so. So this is where they talk about the future analysis that is needed. Basically they were saying the framework for this income-driven repayment program is very vague, but if this is kind of the way it plays out the way they see it, it would be reasonably alone that one line item, number 3, the one that people are not paying attention to, could be $450 billion.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I know.
There's definitely
pretty
needs
crazy.
to be some education via the government on this. Like something
Yes.
has to be released.
This is good. They said they haven't ferreted out the rules in total, and rules will be subject to change when administration changes. But this is definitely a program that you're going to have to really dive into and see whether or not it makes sense for your individual kind of circumstances. But this could be much bigger than the actual upfront forgiveness, if you give it think about it that from that standpoint.
Yeah, it could be a lot bigger.
So this is another Burry quote. Immediately when this came out, this is kind of his argument and take about how the vast majority of research being done at these undergraduate or universities, institutions, is being government funded through grants.
Yes.
They literally have people on staff that's their entire job is to try to secure grants for research, right?
That's how. That's actually the vast majority of scientific research and stuff at universities gets through is they'll go after topics that may not be the most helpful, but are the most easily financially able to get grants. So yeah, it's kind of a messed up system.
My favorite one from recent history, I guess, was a COVID related research where basically if you put that on and COVID and spread and any research article is getting funded, right? There was one about looking at the dispersal patterns of patients with and without dentures and whether or not that materially impacted their ability to spread COVID when they sneezed.
Who cares?
I mean, interesting, but like it's just insane. I don't know how much money that particular research study cost, but definitely
Probably a lot.
I can't imagine that was a good return on investment.
Some of these studies are crazy. I mean, a 25-cent mask renders that study no longer needed. So
Yeah, exactly. This was kind of an interesting twist, but sends me down a little bit of a rabbit hole here. I don't have any more slides about it, but basically this is talking about the endowments of these universities, how they have significant amount of financial assets that they invest in, this sort of stuff, which, certainly they're not running their business in such a thin margin that they're basically dispelling all their profits every year. They're able to keep and retain significant portions of money here, right?
Okay.
That's my point with this whole thing. This is the top 20 colleges as far as their endowments. But there was a really interesting article talking about public service loan forgiveness in law school and the effect that that's had, where basically if you know that you're going to work for 10 years in like a public sector, if you're going to be assistant district attorney or something like that, you can effectively get your law school for free, and the law school will help you facilitate that. And by means of them kind of lining their own pockets with federal government money, because they know that these loans are forgiven after the 120 payments as of now. But
that seems very snaky. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know.
I don't want to. I feel bad whenever I say this stuff, but this doesn't solve the problem, right? This is a Band-Aid on the problem. You're giving away like 10K for the most part, just to make it simple. It's not in any way solving the problem. If you look at education, like any state school, what it cost 20 years ago versus now, and then look at how much that money went for inflation, it doesn't make any sense.
Exactly. There is a great chart. I don't know if you've ever seen it. I should have put it in the presentation. College versus CPI, showing you exactly how far they diverge from each other in terms of like their costs. This is basically what I'm looking at. So right. Once the federal government started issuing large amounts of student loans, you just see this complete divergence in terms of their trajectory, and that is only likely to get worse when you have more interference. In my personal opinion, it makes sense logically, but who knows if that actually truly holds.
I could do a whole video on how stupid this system is, or the fact that you need a bachelor's degree for an entry-level job where you won't use anything in your bachelor's degree, that you just had to get it to get the job.
Yeah. Stupid. Yeah. It's like the scene in Harry Potter where they give Dobby a sock. It's like, Master has given Dobby clothing. I am free. Yeah. That's you're getting your college degree a lot.
Pretty much the same. That's it.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
If you want to hear more about this, let us know. We'll be glad to do future topics about this as more of this program's rolled out and we find out more details.
Yeah, you can hear me vent because I hate this. Have a good one.
See you next one.